Good evening. Can you all hear me? Well, I'm Dr. Naina Jacob. I'm a professor of organizational behavior and human resource management. I'm also the chairperson of the B.B. Patole Center for Sustainability. Can you all hear me? Sorry. One of the activities which comes under the B.B. Patole Center for Sustainability is the Social Immersion Program, popularly known as SIP here. And I just wanted to share with you some information about the Social Immersion Program. In many ways, the SIP is unique and different and something that is not found in other business schools. One of the objectives of the Social Immersion Program is to enable students to become more socially aware and responsible. But that is not the only objective. Through the SIP, students also learn important and necessary managerial competencies. So what actually happens in a typical SIP project, because students undertake projects under the Social Immersion Program, students are seconded to NGOs in various parts of India. And then they identify a problem which is of interest to them, a social problem. And then they set about trying to find a solution to the social problem using management tools and techniques. So in the process, they're learning about project management. Many B schools teach project management, and the problem will be centered around a corporation. But here in IFIM, students are expected to identify a social problem and use management techniques to solve that social problem. We find that students are able to solve these problems quite successfully and thus make a social impact. This type of social impact making is relevant to the Indian context, and it encourages people to be able to give back to society, which is something now all business schools are putting emphasis on. If you look at the Harvard Business School, their dean has also talked about the need for business schools and business students to learn about giving back to society. But we in India require this more. And all the work that we have been doing under the Social Immersion Program has excited quite a lot of interest. For instance, 2 years ago, a group of students were working with an NGO called Anti-Pollution Drive in Mangalore. And they were looking at the condition of lungs of around 300 auto rickshaw drivers. So these students were given a device, a medical device by which lungs could be tested. This device was given to students by a pharmaceutical company, Lupin. They were trained in how to use this device by the best hospital in Mangalore. And then they actually tested the lungs of 300 auto rickshaw drivers. Their original sample was more than 300, but from that sample, they removed habitual smokers. So when they looked at these 300 auto rickshaw drivers, they found that about 1/5 of them had damaged lungs. And this was on account of the pollution in Mangalore. So the students made certain number of recommendations as to what can be done to help auto rickshaw drivers. But what was of the essence is that this kind of a survey of auto rickshaw drivers was done for the first time anywhere in India. And this data was presented by our students and the NGO with which they were working to a sitting MLA. And the MLA presented the data to the Legislative Assembly in Bangalore, and thus brought attention to the need for taking care of auto rickshaw drivers and generally ensuring that pollution levels are brought under control. So these are the kind of projects our students do under the social immersion program. Then they learn managerial qualities like resilience, because they cannot run away from the social immersion project even if they want to. And resilience is a very important managerial competence. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, so to speak. So it will help them in manager life. But they also learn how to use the scientific procedures they have learned as business school students and apply them to situations. And they apply TEV analysis to arrive at solutions. TEV analysis is techno-economic viability analysis. And this is what is formally used in project management in different business schools. Now, I'm just going to find out if there are any questions which are coming up. Not yet, all right. So I will explain a little more about our social immersion program. Students also learn about prototyping. Prototyping is an effort to find a solution and then either pilot test it or create a model of the solution which can be tested in the real world. Last year, I had mentored each SIP project is managed or undertaken by a group of students of around 8 in number. And each such SIP group has a faculty mentor and an NGO mentor. And I was one of the faculty mentors attached to a group which did their project in Ladakh last year. And what the students found was that when they went to a very remote village, they observed that, because part of the objective, as I told you, is for students to learn about social responsibility. And in this village, they found that there was only a single toilet in the entire village. And that toilet had been built very recently by an NGO. Otherwise, what people were doing was to have a hole built in the upper story of their house. And they would use that. And they would collect whatever dropped down from the upper story, the hole which was put there, and which fell down on the ground. And that was kept for 10 days in their compound and was later used as fertilizer. So this was something students had never seen before. And it exposed them to the ground reality of India. So they now saw people who were different from themselves, and it would enable them to understand how there are different consumer segments, for instance, that if they are making a product or marketing a product, they have to think of the requirements and needs of people who are not only just living in cities, but also living in the rural sector. I mean, that is a huge market in India, as we all know. And these students also went and met the district collector to try and persuade her to create a new land fill where garbage and rubbish could be kept by villagers, because they did not have appropriate garbage collection or garbage management system where they were living. The students also conducted a focus group discussion, a training session, and got the residents of the village to understand the concept of garbage segregation. What was being done in Bangalore, they brought that know-how and gave it to the villagers. And they also gifted the villagers with 2 gigantic bins, one for dry waste and one for wet waste. And they were trying to ensure, they tied up with an NGO there, whereby the dry waste could be recycled. See, so all this was done within the ambit of the social immersion project. And this project was presented and entered into the Business Standard Best Management Project competition. Every year, Business Standard gives a award to the best student project done during the year. And it doesn't have to be a project centered around social issues. But nonetheless, this project, which is undertaken in Ladakh, was a semi-finalist at the All India level. So this project was accepted as an equal to the other management projects which focused on typical management problems in a corporate setting. You see? So our social immersion projects actually give a lot of scope for students to be creative, to engage in what is known as frugal innovation, and to think out of the box, because the solutions they come up with are not textbook solutions. They're solutions which they have to think of themselves. The problem itself is not a classroom problem. It's not a textbook problem. It's a problem that they have thought of, they found on the ground, a real life problem, and they understand the problem and they try to find solutions for that problem. Any questions? Not yet. Okay. Now, there was another group of students which had worked with CRY in Bangalore, Child Relief and Youth. And what they had done was to look at a government school which had dropping enrollment. This is a matter of concern for the students and also for the NGO CRY, because it meant that the students were not getting the free meal which otherwise they would have been getting if they were attending school. Now, the reason for the falling enrollment was on account of there being an open sewage in front of the school, and children were falling sick. So our IFIM business school students did a survey in that area and talked to the parents of children, and they found that the parents were wanting to send their children back to school, but if only the sewage could be managed so that their children did not fall sick. So our IFIM business school students prepared a report which they distributed in that area. And it so happened that a corporation official was standing for re-elections at that time. And so this need for removing the sewage from in front of the government school became an election issue, because the parents of these children had been discussing it with our business school students for quite some time, and it was uppermost in their minds. And this corporation official made it his election pledge to clear the sewage from in front of the school so that the students could return and study there. And he was re-elected, and the first thing he did was, in fact, clear the sewage, to have that whole area taken care of, proper plumbing done there. And some organization volunteered to repaint that school. So, there is quite a big difference now if we go back to that school. And our business school students have played a pivotal role in ensuring that this happens. So these students have a great sense of satisfaction that they're able to see in tangible form the result of their work, the result of their efforts, and the result of the solution that they had brought to bear on that situation. Ishita Jain is asking, I would like to ask that how does SIP work? Do we have any selection criteria for it, or is it compulsory for each one of us? Well, it's very good that you asked that question, Ishita, because the social immersion program is a compulsory part of our curriculum here. The social immersion project which each student undertakes as part of a group is worth 5 credits. It's a 5-credit practice course. It's called a practice course because students don't attend classes in a classroom situation. They don't read books and have homework, but they look at a real life problem in the social sector and then apply management tools and techniques to find a solution to that problem. So students learn about how to be more socially responsible, but they also learn management concepts and techniques and how to manage management problems. So it is compulsory for every single IFIM business school student. Okay, so it is good that you asked that question. But generally, students have been positive towards the social immersion program. We started it on a pilot basis 3 years ago. And then on account of the student positive feedback, we decided to make it compulsory. So we've had 2 academic years where we had this as a compulsory part of the curriculum. And this is the 3rd year that we're running it as a compulsory part of our curriculum. We've just completed what is known as the social immersion. This is a 2-week period. Students are actually out in the field studying the problem which they want to solve. Okay, there is a question from Abhijit Kumar. SIP projects are pre-decided or we have to come up with ideas? If pre-decided, what all are the projects available? Well, SIP projects can be pre-decided if students are not able to come up with ideas themselves. But we encourage students to think about the type of problems they would like to solve. Some students like to look at education. Some students like to look at helping women get empowered. Some students like to look at garbage management, sanitation. And some students like to look at how cities can be managed better, that they can be more planning in the deliverables of cities. So students actually look at what they are interested in and then identify an NGO they would like to work with. So a lot of opportunities are given for students to decide on the NGO they want to work with, the location, the kind of project, the problem. Everything is more or less decided by students. Only if students are unable to decide on their own, then they can take the help of various faculty members. So I hope that answers your question. Sakshi Modi. We will be getting training before going to SIP. Well, you get a briefing before you go to SIP, and you also get mentoring from your faculty mentor. Training is ongoing because the project starts typically in April and ends in August. There's a 2-week immersion period around April, May. And after that, students work on finding a solution under the guidance of a faculty mentor. So the faculty mentor does give inputs on TEV analysis and prototyping, and generally oversees the work that students are doing. But since much of the work is field work, it is not training that is given beforehand, but it is training on the job, so to speak. Okay? So next question is from Huzaifa Akhtarwala. Ma'am, do we choose the NGOs on our own, or are we provided from the college? It is up to you. You can choose on your own, or if you don't want to choose on your own, we have partner NGOs who we can put in touch with you. But if you choose on your own, then you have to make a presentation about the NGO to a panel of faculty members. Because we are interested, because these NGOs then have to sign a memorandum of understanding with us, and we want to ensure that they are established NGOs with mentors who can give the right type of mentoring to our students when they are on the field. But yes, definitely students have a lot to say in deciding which NGO they're going to work with. It's the social immersion program is a student-driven effort. Inuganti Ishwar, the question is, ma'am, in the SIP part of the prospectus, I came across the word TEV report. Yes, it is good you encountered that term, because that is the main management technique which you'll be using during SIP. TEV, techno-economic viability. You will learn how to use that approach while engaged in the social immersion project. So as I said, you're not only learning how to be socially responsible, but you're also learning management techniques. And at the end of the day, you are expected to have some kind of an outcome which makes a social impact. But you'll be taught how to do all this while you're with us. Varnika Garg, I wanted to know in which semester particularly will we undergo SIP. So SIP is not limited to a single semester. It runs across 2 semesters. So it normally is from April to August of a particular year. Yes, so now SIP is running for your juniors. They have just finished their immersion in a village. Divyanshu Kulkarni wants to know whether we get to choose the SIP project we want and our different projects in different parts of the country. Excuse me, I'll just have a sip of water because I have a sore throat. Yes, you do get to choose your SIP project. It will be an area of your interest, your group's interest, with an NGO of your choice to the extent that it's possible. And these projects are conducted in different parts of the country. So we have projects in Kashmir, in Kerala, in Maharashtra, in West Bengal, in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Karnataka, of course, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Uttaranchal, Orissa. These are all places where we have projects, SIP projects, yeah. Does the college take us to the concerned area or we come on our own? That's a very good question you asked, because it's good for you to know this. As students work in a project in groups of 8, and the groups are formed by students themselves. So students normally or typically form themselves into a group where they are comfortable with each other. The members are comfortable with each other. So the group goes on its own to the project site. Yes, the NGO will be there to help the group, and a faculty mentor will make a visit for about 4 days. But the group has to be there for around 2 weeks. They go there on their own and they come back on their own. Because once students become business managers, they will have to travel on their job, and the organization will expect them to go on their own and come back on their own. They will not be accompanied by anybody. So this is training for that scenario. Okay, Jentika Aurora wants to know, I would like to know in which year we opt for SIPs, and also I would like to know that we select SIPs of our own choice or college selects for us. Students join around July, August of a year. So if you join this year around July, August, your SIP will be from April to August next year. And you do get to choose your own projects. It's only if you are unable to get a project of your liking, or you have not had the time to get a project, or you tried getting a project but you did not succeed, then we will help you. But generally, students find their own projects. It normally does not happen that students require help in identifying projects. Oh, okay. All right. So you can see that, many B schools at the end of the first year, they send students for a 2-month project with a company. So that's called the summer project. But instead of having a summer project, we have this social immersion project. You also have an industry immersion project as well. So it's not that you don't have a live project with a company or not. It's not that you don't actually intern with a company. You do that for 4 months at IIP, but you also have the social immersion program because you get to learn a lot of things, which are formatted differently from other business schools. So this is one of the reasons why I find is unique. And many business schools of note and repute are trying to ensure that students do learn how to be more socially responsible. As I said earlier, Harvard Business School is doing that. They try to, there is a book written by a Harvard Business School professor called Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. So that is that you don't have to target always the very rich to make money. You can also make money by targeting people at the bottom of the pyramid. You can make money on volume rather than on price. So that's what the book talks about. But that's not the only thing the book talks about. The book also talks about how people have to give back to society, to their community. It's not just about maximizing on the opportunities that we have received in life. It's also about creating opportunities for other people so that the community as a whole can prosper, with everybody everybody contributing and prospering simultaneously.
No queries.
Okay. But like I said, the social immersion program or the project that students do is a 5-credit program. No academic course is worth 5 credits. You do different academic courses which are worth 4 credits or 3 credits. But this is a very important part of our curriculum. And students do have to do a project. Like I've already said, it's compulsory. But so far, students have enjoyed doing the project. The feedback has been positive, and it has equipped them for a managerial job where they are also, learn to be empathetic towards others. It improves their interpersonal skills. Students have to make presentations on account of social immersion projects, so it improves their oral presentation skills. They have to write reports, business reports, so it improves their business report writing skills. They have to do a lot of analysis, a lot of critical thinking. So all these managerial competencies come to bear while engaged in the social immersion project and the social immersion program. Sakshi Modi wants to know, can we decide which part of the country we want to conduct SIP? Yes, Sakshi, you can decide. all students this year have decided where they want to do their SIP, so that choice is there. We have, IFIM has adopted 5 villages under the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan scheme. These 5 villages are in the district of Kola, which is close to Bangalore. And this year, for the first time, we had 37 students doing their SIP projects in Kolar. So we have adopted 5 villages there. So we had 5 SIP groups going to these villages, one group in each village. And they've done a lot of very good work there in these villages. Now, what was challenging for these students was that they were not mentored by an NGO. They had to work on their own. They had to identify the problem which existed in those villages and then present or formulate solutions to those problems all on their own. So this is a new addition to our social immersion program, the 5 villages in Kola, which we have adopted. And the work that is being done in Kolar is ongoing. There are many students who are interested in volunteering for social responsibility projects even after the SIP is over, before it begins. So some of our students are thinking of conducting and organizing a medical camp in a village called Setiganahali, which has never had a medical camp conducted there. So this will be a first for them. And this is what our students are planning to do. Because we have a CSR club at IFI, a Corporate Social Responsibility Club. So there are students who are very interested in corporate social responsibility, in initiatives like the social immersion program, but all kinds of other activities as well. There are many clubs and societies at IFI. So students choose clubs and societies of their interest. They could choose to be part of the marketing club, or part of the Toastmasters club, or part of the HR club. Many students like to be with the CSR club as well. So as part of the CSR club initiatives, there is what is known as Shiksha Aadhar, where students give free coaching in the hostel to underprivileged students so that they can perform in school much better with the free tuition that they're receiving from our students. So many students find this very fulfilling, and it leads to their growth as human beings and as people. Okay, there is a question from Huzaifa Atarwala. Just for info's sake, which all NGOs has IFIM signed an MOU with? Now, we have signed MOUs with some 35 NGOs. So I'll tell you some of them. One is CRY, Child Relief and You. Then there is Prime Trust, which has most of its activities in Puducherry. There is Shine in Hyderabad. There is Anti-Pollution Drive and Ruchi in Mangalore. There's Educare in Ladakh and in Dharamshala. There is Waste Warriors in Dharamshala and Corbett. There is Jagorani, an institute for the handicapped and backward people in Kolkata. There's World Vision in Hyderabad and Kolkata. There is Art of Living in Bangalore. There are NGOs in Delhi, Ghaziabad, and so on. I can show you the entire list when you come to IFI and I meet you personally. I can show you the entire list of 35 NGOs. Inungati Ishwar, what is our duty exactly? Is it getting to know the problems and providing possible solutions, or do we help them in any other way? We're actually, you're very smart Inugati, you're very intelligent because you've answered your own question. Your duty is to find a problem, because all communities, all organizations have problems, and here you're finding a social problem. The NGO helps you to locate the social problem, and you find a solution as well. Now, what you do additionally is entirely up to you. If you wish, you can donate a computer, for instance. One SIP group this year, which was working in Hyderabad, contributed 1,000 rupees per student, and they were able to gift a computer to the underprivileged students they were working with. So you can do a lot of things on your own as well. But to satisfy the requirements of the social immersion project, you have to identify a problem and find a solution to it as well. Okay, because managers find solutions to problems. That's their main job. They get things done. So you're having an opportunity to get something done live. Excuse me. Rudra Ghosh Dastidar, I want to know what we will have to do once we decide our SIP topic and complete our on-site job. Like we have to make a presentation, reports, etc. Yes, you have to make presentations and reports which are assessed. You get marks for these. You make one presentation on-site to your NGO, they'll give you marks. NGO gives you marks. It's not just your faculty mentor who's giving marks to you. At the conclusion of the SIP in August, you make a presentation to a panel of NGOs, which are not our partner NGOs. So they don't know anything about the students who have worked on the projects. They only listen to the presentation and then decide and ask questions to each student of a group, and then they give marks. So you do have to make presentations which are given marks. You also have to make reports at different stages of the project. After you return from immersion, you have to submit a report which is marked. At the end of the project, you have to submit a project report which is also marked. And in between, you're also given marks for different stages of the project. You have to write out a problem statement, you get marks for that. You have to generate viable options, solution options, you get marks for that. You have to identify the criteria by which you're going to decide whether the solution is suitable or not, you get marks for that. So, there are various types of assessments for the SIP. In fact, there are a total of some 9 or 11 different assessment points. Sakshi Modi. This is a good question from Sakshi Modi. All the expenses during SIP, apart from personal expenses, will be borne by us? Yes, the answer is yes. It is printed in the SIP handbook as well, that all expenses related to SIP have to be borne by the students themselves. So these expenses include travel expenses, accommodation expenses, and of course personal expenses. Okay. So students who, this year for instance, there were some students who did not want to spend too much money on SIP. So they opted to do their SIP projects in Kolar, because then they don't have much expenses involved. There's no real transport expense involved, because it's Kolar is located around 200 kilometers from Bangalore. So the students there, some of the students stayed in a house which is given to them free of cost by the villagers. And that itself was a very interesting experience, because this house that was given to these students, there was a family staying on the ground floor, and the top floor was given to the students. But the house construction work had not been completed. So the rooms in which the students were staying had no doors. So 4 girls stayed in one room with an open door, and 4 boys opted to sleep on the terrace. Yes, and this is how they managed. And before they stayed in Kola, the students were wondering whether they would be up to the challenge, but they managed to stay there, and they were very happy that they did rise to the challenge and live in these circumstances.
Did she have any more experiences?
There was a group of students who had gone to Delhi last year, and the reason why they had chosen Delhi was because their parents were in Delhi, and they thought that they would do something by way of social immersion, but most of the time they would stay at home. But then they were so caught up in the project that they were doing, which was to find a pricing model for pickles that were being made by underprivileged women at home, and which they were selling, and they were really not getting much of a margin for the effort that they were putting in. So the students did a survey of pickles that were sold in kirana shops, and then they helped these women to find a price point which would still make the pickles that we're selling attractive, but also enable them to make a much bigger profit. They also help the ladies market their product better, find ways of popularizing the product, getting people to create awareness about this product. And they found it so very interesting that they actually spend very little time at home. So this is what happens to our students. They get immersed in the problem, and they find it very interesting actually to try and solve the problem in their own way using the management know-how they have learned at IFIM.
I think yes.
All right.
You can ask to share questions.
If you have any questions about SIP, please do put them to me. I'll be very happy to answer them right now in case you have any questions. Students have, handled all kinds of problems. There was a group last year which worked with an NGO called the Dalit Alliance, and they worked with Joginis in Andhra Pradesh. The Joginis are actually women who are on the fringes of society because they are like Devadasis. And our students were really moved by their plight and the way that they, even in this year or last year, 2018, they are struggling to find a place in society because nobody wants to accept them. The students worked very hard to try and think of ways by which they could be integrated in society. Yes, so this was a very different type of project which students had worked on, and they had selected this project on their own. Nobody had asked them to work with Joginis. They wanted to, and they found it very fulfilling and satisfying. Ornab Chowdhury wants to know, Madam, my question is that for how many days will our SIP be? Okay, SIP as a project, because it's about managing a project, runs from April to August. Now there's what is called the immersion period in the middle of this project. The immersion period is for 2 weeks when students are attached to an NGO and work with the beneficiaries that they're trying to find, they're trying to help. So during this 2-week period, they identify a problem, they study the problem in all its dimensions, and then they return to IFIM, and it's at IFIM that they start thinking of different solutions for this problem. So one indicator of how good a project they have managed is when they come up with a solution, is the solution accepted by the beneficiaries and by the NGO. If it is accepted and implemented, that means that they have been successful in solving the problem and in making social impact. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
All right. So it has been very interesting interacting with you. The questions you asked were very insightful and intelligent. And thank you for this opportunity for being able to clear any doubts you may have had about our social immersion program. Thank you very much.